And I want to go through a few things, and maybe you give the grade.
Okay.
A plus or F minus, and this is in business, okay? This is not in sports. I wish I could come up with a sports list. You could give me
all
yours.
good, it's all good.
You better give me yours, A plus and F minus in sports, okay? So think of that.
He'd
You
say
come up
Philadelphia.
with that, right? All right. Well, hold the phone.
All right.
Okay, I'll start off with gold. John.
At least an A. Still, even after the run that it's had. Some of the gold mining stocks are up over 100% this year. Can it continue? As you know, Nicole, they don't necessarily own all the land that they mine on. So if you're mining and you're saying, okay,
Yeah.
we signed a deal where we're pulling it out of the ground at 2,800 to the ounce and it's 3,300 to the ounce, an extra $500 in your pocket per ounce, those are winners. So
Okay.
that's why we've seen
So
that.
at least an A, maybe an A plus. Gold.
Gold, I'm going to give it an A plus.
Ah.
And I say that because I think the way it's moving now makes a lot of sense. It started at 2,600 at the beginning of the
Right.
year. We jumped up to 3,100, kind of pulled back a little bit. Next thing you know, all-time highs, 3,400.
Right.
So I think what's pressuring it right now, recently, has been the sellers, which is very smart. It's the disciplined part of what you should do. Anybody who got it anything under 3,000,
Right.
you ought to be trimming. You ought to be coming in there and saying, you know what, I'll take another 10% off. I'll take another 10% and push this thing down. But I do think it actually has a chance to start returning back up towards that 3,400.
What-
It's just a matter of when they get done selling.
Okay, so you both like gold. Tell me about the greenback, the U.S. dollar, Pete. What rating do you give the U.S. dollar?
Well, I guess depends on your perspective, right? I mean, because it hit some pretty brutal lows, which makes things a little bit more different, right? I mean, it puts us in a bit of a bind when you don't have the money. You have inflation starts to fire up again,
Yeah.
and so I think that's one of those. I would say in between that whole thing, I'd probably give it a C.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been acting very well. It's not certainly not the lowest historically.
No.
But your thoughts on the dollar?
Well, and I'd be right there with Pete on a C, but I would say if we want to export more, if these tariffs become fair trade rather than just the odds stacked against us, the fact that the dollar is weaker is good for
Right.
American exports. It's
Exports.
not good for us buying more from these other countries. So, like Pete said, it depends on which side you want to be on.
And it stays as the world's reserve currency.
I think
Do you both
absolutely.
agree
It's like
on
George
that?
Costanza. He's an importer-exporter, you know. I mean, it's the whole thing.
Right, yeah.
So it depends which one you
Right?
are.
What was the
Mandalay.
plastics? Mandalay Industries. Bitcoin.
Or Vandalay.
Yeah, Vandalay. Yeah,
Vandalay.
plastics or something. Yeah, that was very funny. So tell me about Bitcoin. Crypto, in or
I love
out?
it.
Give me your grade.
I'm in, and I love it. I think that people that dismiss it are not looking at what the future could be, because when governments print more money, it devalues those currencies. And as Michael Saylor, the head
Sure.
of strategy, used to be called MicroStrategy,
Right.
the head of strategy said, his home in the 1920s was like worth $4 million. Now it's worth $40 million. It's because the dollar has just shrank in its ability to buy things. Meanwhile, Bitcoin has just gone parabolic like this. I think you're going to see more and more companies doing what Michael Saylor did,
Right.
and that is putting some of it on their balance sheet. And I think the
And we've seen
United
the government
States,
doing it. Yeah.
with a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I think that's just manna from heaven for anybody in digital assets.
Oh, you did a strategic. Did you say A or what did you?
I
what
give
was
it
the
an A.
What was the letter? For
I'm going to
three?
give it an A.
Oh, you're
Okay.
giving it an A?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to back
A.
off on that one because here's what I've got. It started the year
That
95.
sounds like a B. That started with a
Well,
back off.
maybe a B, maybe.
Hey,
But
okay, go ahead.
It might be lower. But it started the year at 95,000. Where are we today? We're at about 103, somewhere close to that number right now, this moment. But we did go down to 77,000. We did pop right back up again, and we got up over 100,000. So that I think is positive, but I don't think it's that positive that I can give it an A. And I do think there are a lot of other, whether they're miners or other companies that actually kind of go in tandem sometimes with Bitcoin. And there's Riot, there's Marathon, there's names out there that I think
Right.
you could pick from. But when I look at this one, I'll give it a B minus.
All right, so you're in a bit of a wait and see mode there. I'll give you the lead on U.S. equities. You got a grade for that? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been absolutely incredible. The ability for us as Americans to look at how these markets actually work, and we started off so strong. It looked great when we started off the earnings season. Things were running and ripping to the upside, right? We set new levels for just about everything. And then all of a sudden this whole tantrum came upon us and we got the selling. Heck, we've already gotten past the S&P. So I think we've really done a lot of things in a short period of time. I got to give it an A.
Oh, A for U.S. We're going to get to international next. I mean, it's like a little U.S. equities.
Yeah,
Jon.
I'm there with Pete. I think that U.S. equities, again, at $103,000 per Bitcoin, would I rather own Bitcoin or NVIDIA? Which one has more upside from their present level over this calendar year? I'd say NVIDIA does, not Bitcoin, even though I gave Bitcoin an A. Why did I do that? Because I think as more and more companies and endowments and all the rest start owning Bitcoin, it'll just start chugging along.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that own it a lot cheaper than this that'll be taking some profits. And if I look at a $103,000 investment, I like the idea of going with something more like a stock that I could see significant growth in rather than Bitcoin, because I don't think it has quite the same oomph to the upside.
All right, so that was an A for U.S. equities?
Yep.
Last one in the fast fire here, international equities.
I'd say B minus. I like them, but I don't love them. There's a lot of problems in Europe right now. There's problems in China from what we've talked about with the tariffs. Japan, slightly different story, but I'd say B minus for international. How about you?
I'd throw a B minus, C plus, sort of in that range. And just because of what I see going on. Although I will say one thing that could turn that whole thing around on its head and be an A. We have seen so much unusual option activity buying in Chinese ETFs, and I haven't been able to piece this whole thing together fully, but the FXI, the Asher is another one, KWeb is another one. All three of those,
large cap tech.
We have huge buyers coming in, and they're going out to July, and they're buying these numbers that are pretty amazing, 40,000, 50,000 at a clip, and these are options. This isn't stock, so this really controls a heck of a lot. So I'm pretty impressed with that. Now that the proof is in the pudding, can they get there? Can they get to those numbers? And that will be the challenge, I think.
Global market volatility has made learning options a necessity.
It's not an option. Pick up a free copy of our new book, It's Not an Option, today